Hello everyone, welcome back to Major Hi-Fi. I'm Luke. So I recently did a review of the new Audio-Technica M50x Lantern Glow Edition, kind of a throwback headphone. And there were some comments about other Audio-Technica models, namely the M40x, people saying it was better for mixing, stuff like that. And I sort of started thinking about all the different models they make. So I wanted to do a comparison of the M40, M50, M60, and M70x because I just felt sort of like revisiting all these headphones and sort of gauging them side by side, which I haven't done in quite a long time. So Audio-Technica obviously has a good reputation, but there's a wide variety of different sound signatures their headphones offer, and of course a variety of prices. So let's go on ahead and get into it. So I've got these lined up in accordance to price. The M40x runs for $99, the M50x runs for $149, or if you want the special edition Lantern Glow orange color, it's $169. And then the M60x is $199 and the M70x is $299. With the exclusion of the M60x, these are all over-ear headphones. The M60x is an on-ear headphone. So I'm going to be talking about these, how they sound in general, but also of course sort of how they might function for music creation, casual listening, what their applications might be best for. I'm sure Audio-Technica would tell you that they can all be used for whatever you want, but I'm going to give you my thoughts. Once again, aside from the M60x, these all have very similar builds. The M60x is definitely a more sort of small, compact size, of course. The rest of them are almost identical in terms of their body and build. They're all very sort of bare bones, no like flashy parts or anything like that, nothing out of the ordinary looking. And they're all made of just sort of plastic and leather of some sort. So yeah, I really never have much to say on the looks about these, except for that they are super sturdy. They're kind of an indestructible headphone, at least in my experience, for all of these models, and that they are definitely a function over fashion type of headphone. Anyways, let's go on ahead and talk about the sound. Hey guys, Luke here. Just wanted to pop in and say that if you're enjoying this video, it would be great if you could subscribe and hit the bell to get notified when we make new content, and hit the like button and leave us a comment if you have any suggestions or questions or anything like that. I would love to talk to you guys more. We would really love some help growing the channel, and just want to make sure that we're reaching our audience and whatnot. So yeah, any support is greatly appreciated, and let's get back to the review. Alright, so first off is the M40x. Of all four of these, the M40x definitely has the most kind of spatial, separated sound, which makes it optimal for mixing and producing and stuff like that. It's very easy to pinpoint issues with your mix on these because you can hear every single piece of it and you can hear how they're all interacting with a lot of clarity. Of these four, the M40x have probably one of the lightest bass responses aside from the M70x. The M40 do not reach that far into the sub range, though they do have a pretty defined attack in those kind of upper low frequencies. So this once again makes them good for a more transparent kind of semi-neutral sound. I will say when working on sub heavy music, those frequencies do feel pretty hard to analyze on the M40x, and for me, that makes it hard to make sure that there's just not like a ton of mud or kind of just clashing going on down there, because it's not a super forward part of the response. I also understand that bass boosts are just kind of becoming more and more common on headphones and stuff like that, and these are trying to just sort of sound reference and not mimic things, but I just do feel like being able to kind of hear those basement frequencies more would be helpful in certain scenarios. But by no means are they totally devoid of it, they just have a much lighter touch down there. The M40 have a pretty neutral, transparent high end, definitely the most transparent of any of these, unsurprisingly. And this, of course, once again, makes them more optimal for music creation, as their high end is not cleaned up, it's not purified, it's not sparkling perfect, it's not going to give your music a huge kind of boost in the right direction. It's just going to give it to you as is. Though even though this high end is fairly kind of raw and a bit clinical, it doesn't feel stuffy or kind of like overly thick in an inaccurate way because of how open and separated these are. You're just getting things in a pretty easy to kind of analyze package, like I said. Alright, so next up is the M50x, which is what I reviewed recently. I will link to that below. And a lot of people were saying the M40x is better for mixing, and I don't think that they are wrong about that. The M40x, compared to the M50x, does have better sound separation. It has a more neutral high end and mid range, and it has that more kind of just flat low-end response. The M50X has a pretty subdued mid-range, a much brighter, cleaner high-end, and a pretty darn bassy low-end. So these are just not as transparent. They have a bit more of a kind of defined style that they cast onto the sound. So I feel like the M50X can still be used to get a good mix. You just have to learn their biases a bit more than you do with the M40X. The M40X you can kind of trust off the bat. The M50X you might need to adjust to first. For me, I prefer the M50X for mixing because I like to have that low end extended, because low end is extended in basically every system these days, so I kind of just want an applicable, more all-encompassing low end that allows me to just hear everything going on. Even if it is a bit extended, I can just know that if my mixes sound bassy on these, then they probably have a bit more of a neutral bass tone or a kind of, balanced bass tone on other systems. If you're someone who, when you're working on music, you tend to kind of get excitement out of, really upping the low end on things and getting that bassy sound, then the M50X could be better for making sure you don't overshoot the mark, because it's going to take a lot more boosting to get that really sub-heavy sound out of the M40X. You just need to learn kind of what your work is supposed to sound like on these if it's a solid mix, whereas the M40X has a little bit less of that kind of workaround you have to do to understand them as a reference headphone. All right, so up next is the M60X. We're now kind of moving away from the area of kind of more dedicated reference and mixing headphones into the world of more versatile use headphones, at least from what I heard on these. Of course, the M60X is an on-ear model, not an over-ear model, making it a little bit different of a sort of, overall feel than the rest of these, but it's still worthy, of comparison, I think. The M60 has a sort of similar sub-response to the M50, maybe not quite as strong, and also has a little bit less of a just all-around boost. It's more focused in that low area. It has a similar sort of sub-presence to the M50X, but not quite as strong, and kind of switches out some of that power for the upper lows. With their high end, the M60 is definitely the most dampened out of all of these. It's by no means dark, but this is a group of all pretty bright headphones, and the M60 has the least brightness going on. They just have a bit more of a colored, rounded high end and high mid range, which once again sort of contributes to their use as a more casual listening device because they are not very transparent. They do have a similar width on their soundstage to the M40 and 50, but they have a bit more kind of cohesion between the layers. They go on ahead and glue things together nice and pleasantly. They have this sort of pleasant warmth to them, a fair amount of purity going on in the mid-range to really clean things up, and some added airiness to the high end. They're just, they're kind of rooting for your song. These are a little bit less so. They're like rooting for your effort to make the song sound good. These don't sound heinous in comparison to the M60. You could honestly buy these for casual listening. It's not out of the question. It's just a matter of if you want that more brighter high end, you want a kind of, upper low focused or sub focused with a lot of rumble going on, or if you want those extended super highs in the M50, stuff like that. If the frequency response of these two appeals to you more than the M60, that does not mean that they cannot be viable for a kind of pleasant, nice listen. All right, so up next is the M70. The M70 is of course the most expensive of these. And I would say the first thing about it that stood out to me is that its soundstage is probably the widest of all of these. It really does deprioritize the center and bring out the sides a lot more. The mix feels a lot more surround sound. That middle area is just kind of dropped out. And we get a bit more of a kind of sense of space, a sense of depth from these that's sort of, imposed onto the song. These are by far the least transparent, even more so stylized and inflected than the M60. These have a pretty, clearly intense adjustments going on with them, especially in their high end. The M70 is pretty darn bright. It's got almost metallic high end to it. It's got this like strong sheen that kind of just carries down even into the high mids and really is a fairly obvious boost, and it creates this highly detailed feel. Some people might feel like it's too intense and overbearing, but if you're into a lot of high end, into a bit more of an intense brightness, then you will appreciate that these add a lot of texture and definition and flair, just, an exciting sound from that extra bright, extra kind of forward feel that comes about when you boost high end like that to that extent. These do have a bit of a kind of subdued, tightened up low end, just an overall tightened up sound in general. The leveling of their low end reminded me a little bit of the M40x in terms of it kind of just staying in those upper lows. However, the M70 does not go as intensely on the attack front because I guess it kind of doesn't need to per se, but also it just has that kind of like casual listening, groomed mindset about it. So, you know, many areas are very tamed and kind of tightened up to just give the music a lot of room to breathe. The M70 definitely has the most polarizing sound to me. It's not very subtle, it's just super bright and pretty subdued in the low end and the low mids and stuff like that. So definitely great for anyone who wants just a lot of that added texture, that kind of metallic feel. But if you're someone with sensitive ears, these might be a bit aggressive at times. All right, so that is my rundown of the M40, 50, 60, and 70X. If you're deciding between any of these, hopefully this helped clear up some confusion. Maybe it created more confusion. If so, leave a comment. Let me know any questions you have that I may not have answered, and I will get back to you as fast as I can. These are overall all pretty solid headphones. I don't have major qualms with any of them. I do feel like it could be time to kind of update all of these. I know that this has a new color. I don't know if the tuning has been changed over time. I talked about that in the video I did on these, but I just feel like all of these could use a good few little tweaks here and there. Once again, I don't know if they have or not. I don't work for Audio-Technica, obviously, but yeah, I don't know. These all feel like they are solid and they hold up over time, you know, for however long they've each been out. But I wouldn't mind seeing just cosmetic upgrades and some, you know, retuning, maybe just overall just a few things maybe heightened a little bit, because right now there's a lot of competition out there and Audio-Technica so far has kept its reputation, but they're gonna need to kind of like, you know, come out with something to really, once again, reestablish themselves as a top dog in the sort of affordable headphone market, I feel like. Leave a comment, let me know your opinions on Audio-Technica, things that they're doing right now. Do you feel like they need to release something new, or any opinions on their new releases? I will link below to a written article that covers all 4 of these that I did. You can read that if you'd like to. I will also, of course, link to my video on the M50X. I will also link to Major Hi-Fi's headphone ranking tool where you can compare all of these to one another in addition to every other headphone from Audio-Technica, and you can compare them to any headphone basically ever. So check that out if you want to compare to a super wide array of models. And per usual, I will be back with some more videos and reviews very soon. Don't forget to like and subscribe, pretty please. And yeah, until next time, happy listening.